You've never heard a story like this. This is going to sound unbelievable. But many people say a miracle happens before they even finish this story. If you've ever felt rejected, forgotten, or humiliated, keep watching. Because God has a strange way of turning the last into the first. And before we go on, if you believe in God and in miracles, subscribe right now, so you never miss a story that might just be written for you. Somerset, Kentucky, Lincoln Elementary School. 12-year-old Eli Walker sat at the front of the 5th grade classroom, head bowed, hands folded over a worn-out backpack. His eyes scanned the door every few seconds, praying he'd be the first to line up when the visitors came. He wasn't sure what they'd be bringing, books, maybe, or snacks. Someone had whispered that the guests were from Europe. Missionaries, they said, coming to bless the kids. For Eli, it didn't matter what the gift was. He just wanted to be seen, to be chosen, the boy who tried too hard. Eli had lived with his aunt ever since his parents died in a house fire 6 years ago. His aunt tolerated him, but love was not part of the deal. At school, things weren't much better, especially in Mr. Fletcher's class. Mr. Fletcher was the kind of man who made kids afraid to breathe too loud. But for some reason, Eli got the worst of it. He could do everything right and still get called out, mocked, or ignored. He tried. Oh, he tried. He once brought Mr. Fletcher an apple. The man laughed and threw it in the trash. He answered every question he could. Fletcher pretended not to see his raised hand. Sometimes Eli would whisper to God in the hallway, "Lord, just let him like me, or at least let him leave me alone." But the cruelty only got worse. The announcement. That morning, the school principal came on the intercom with a cheerful announcement. "Boys and girls, we have special guests visiting from overseas today. They've brought a surprise for all of you. Stay in your classrooms until called." Excitement buzzed through the air. Mr. Fletcher looked up from his desk and gave one of his rare, empty smiles. "Line up, students. Front of the line by the whiteboard, tallest to shortest." Eli was already standing by the door. He had arrived early. He was fast. This time, maybe, just maybe, something good would come his way. But then he heard it. "Walker," Mr. Fletcher barked. "Go to the back," Eli blinked. "Sir? You heard me. Back of the line. Now." The class snickered. Eli's cheeks burned. He turned slowly, face stinging with shame, and walked past every student in the line. When he reached the end, he wiped his eyes and whispered, "Why, God?" The unexpected turn. 5 minutes passed. Then came the sound of footsteps, lots of them. Laughter. Foreign voices. A woman with a British accent entered first, followed by others carrying boxes and canvas bags. "Hello, everyone," she said brightly. "We're so glad to be here with you today." Mr. Fletcher welcomed them with forced charm. One of the missionaries, a man in his early 30s, frowned slightly. He leaned over to whisper to his teammate, "Why are all the kids crowded up front like that?" The woman shrugged. "Strange setup." The man turned to the class. "Actually, this won't work," he said kindly. "Too tight up here by the whiteboard. Let's start from the back." Gasps echoed in the room. Eli's eyes widened. Did he just say the back? The first gift, a full supply box with a brand new winter coat, a sketchbook, candy, and a leather Bible, was handed to Eli Walker. He just stared at it. The missionary smiled. "Go ahead, it's yours." Eli slowly reached out, took the box, and hugged it like it might disappear. Mr. Fletcher said nothing. His jaw clenched. But he couldn't argue. Not this time. The verse. As Eli sat back down, he opened the Bible inside the box. On the inside cover was a note. handwritten in blue ink. When God decides to lift you up, no one can push you down. Matthew 20:16. So the last will be first, and the first will be last. He didn't understand how they knew what he needed to hear, but tears filled his eyes. "Thank you, God," he whispered. If this story is already stirring something in your heart, don't just watch and scroll. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next part. Because this miracle, it's just beginning. Eli Walker sat with the box of gifts on his lap like it was made of glass. He could feel 20 pairs of eyes burning holes through him, some curious, some jealous, a few confused. And one full of hate. Mr. Fletcher stood at the corner of the room, arms crossed, trying and failing to pretend this wasn't personal. It was. Pushed Eli to the back to keep him out of the spotlight. That now, the back had become the front. And Eli had received the first and best gift. Mr. Fletcher didn't say a word for the rest of the visit. But Eli saw the fire behind his silence. The missionaries continue. The international missionaries, now moving through the line from back to front, handed out gifts with joy and excitement. Some students received new backpacks, others books and colorful art supplies. It was a celebration, but an awkward one. A few students kept glancing back at Eli. A girl leaned over and whispered, "That should have gone to Mason. He's always." First, Eli pretended not to hear. He was used to pretending. That something was different now. A warmth sat in his chest, like he was finally seen, not by people, but by someone higher. The moment of recognition. Toward the end of the session, the British woman, Miss Lydia Hayes, paused as she walked past Eli's desk. She glanced at his face, then at the name tag taped to the desk. "Eli Walker," she said softly. "That's your name." Eli nodded. She crouched beside him, eyes kind and thoughtful. "You look a lot like someone I met in Tennessee about 12 years ago. A young couple. They were volunteers in one of our summer programs. The husband's name was Michael, and the wife was..." She stopped. Eli's eyes widened. "Michael and Sarah." Her hand went to her mouth. "You knew them?" Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. "They were my parents." Miss Hayes closed her eyes. "Oh my goodness." There was a moment of silence that felt sacred. "They were extraordinary people," she said. "Kind, passionate, faith-filled, always helping others." Eli's throat tightened. He didn't have many memories of them. Just voices, shadows, his father's laugh, his mother's perfume. "They died in a house fire," he said. Barely audible. Ms. Hayes nodded gently. "But what they carried, what they passed to you, it's not gone. It's waiting." Eli didn't understand, but something inside him stirred. The teacher's wrath. Later that afternoon, as the missionaries packed up and said their goodbyes, Mr. Fletcher pulled Eli aside into an empty hallway. His voice was low but laced with venom. "You think that was a miracle, Walker?" Eli didn't answer. "Don't get comfortable. That spotlight will fade. People forget boys like you." Eli looked up at him, something new in his eyes. "Strength, even if they forget me, God." "Won't." The words surprised even Eli. Mr. Fletcher took a step back. His face tightened, but he didn't speak. Eli walked away before fear could silence him. That night at home, Eli sat alone in his small attic room, flipping through the contents of the gift box. At the bottom, under a layer of foam and colored paper, he found something he hadn't noticed before. A white envelope. It had no name on the outside, just a small gold cross printed on the seal. He opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "To the one who feels invisible, this is not random. You were meant to be seen today. You were meant to be chosen. God is not done with your story. The pain, the rejection, the loneliness, it was never wasted. Heaven has been watching. Don't give up. You are not forgotten. Someone who once felt the same. Eli stared at the letter for a long time. His fingers trembled. He couldn't hold back the tears anymore. He had spent years praying for a sign that God still remembered him. And now, this? He held the letter close to his chest, whispering, "Thank you, God. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm listening now." Eli Walker lay awake in his attic bedroom, the soft sound of crickets humming outside his cracked window. The gift box sat beside his bed, half unpacked. The note, the one that felt like God had written it, lay on his chest, like a weight of hope. But something kept tugging at his thoughts. Check the Bible, again. He'd already flipped through it once. But the feeling wouldn't leave. Finally, he sat up, turned on his small lamp, and pulled the leather-bound Bible onto his lap. It wasn't just any Bible, it was aged, with gold-tipped pages and a name embossed on the back flap. Michael S. Walker. His father's name. Eli froze. His mouth went dry. No way. He flipped to the first page and found it his father's handwriting. For my son, if he's ever without me, this word will be enough. Eli pressed his hand over the inscription. His chest tightened. Tears stung his eyes. This was Dad's Bible. Double quotes. He hadn't held anything of his parents in years. Not a single keepsake. And now, in the most impossible way, it had returned to him through missionaries who had no idea who he was when they packed the box. Unless God had orchestrated it all. The envelope, within, tucked between the Psalms, was a folded piece of parchment thicker than a normal page, yellowed with age. Eli unfolded it. Inside was a note. This one written in block print. His mother's handwriting. Eli, if you're reading this, then God has done something amazing. We prayed this Bible would find its way to you someday. We don't know what kind of world you'll grow up in, but you need to know this. You were born with a calling. You were meant to be a light in darkness. No matter how far you feel from us, you are never far from God. Love always. Mum. Eli folded the paper gently and sobbed into his hands. He didn't feel alone anymore. Not completely. The dream. That night, as sleep finally overtook him, Eli had a dream. He stood in a wide, empty field. The grass swayed gently. The sky was purple-grey. In front of him stood a man he couldn't quite see clearly. His face was hidden by light. The man held a lamp in one hand, and in the other, a staff. "You feel small," the figure said. But so did David before the giant. Eli took a shaky breath. "I'm not brave. You don't have to be brave. You just have to obey." The figure extended the lamp toward him. "Take this. It's not to light up your name, but my purpose." When Eli touched it, the whole field blazed with golden light, and he woke up, gasping. The next morning, something shifts. At breakfast, his aunt noticed he looked different. "What's with you?" she asked, pouring burnt coffee into her chipped mug. Eli shrugged. "Just had a good dream." She scoffed. "You dreaming of a way to move out yet?" He didn't answer. Not because he was hurt. He was used to that tone. But something had shifted. It was like he was being filled from the inside out. And bitterness couldn't touch that. At school, kids still stared. Some ignored him. Others whispered. But Eli didn't mind anymore. He wasn't chasing approval. He was walking in something deeper. Mr. Fletcher is watching. From the classroom window. Mr. Fletcher watched Eli take his seat. Something about the boy unsettled him now. There was a peace on Eli's face. That made him feel small. The very sight of it brought back old memories he had worked hard to bury. He turned and walked back to his desk and pulled out an envelope from his drawer. Inside was a letter of rejection from the mission board. Years ago, he too had applied to go on an international mission team, but was passed over by Michael Walker. That boy's father took everything, he muttered. Now I have to watch his sunrise? His jaw clenched. This wasn't over. Mysterious invitation. After lunch, the school secretary walked into Eli's classroom during math. She handed Mr. Fletcher a note, then turned to Eli. You've been invited to attend the district's youth leadership seminar this weekend, sponsored by the visiting missionary team. Mr. Fletcher frowned. That's not necessary. He's just a student. The secretary raised an eyebrow. The invitation came directly from the district superintendent. Said it was a special request. Apparently, the missionaries were very impressed. Eli could barely believe what he was hearing. From invisible to invited. Mr. Fletcher gave him a glare that could burn through steel. Eli didn't flinch. Powerful subscribe moment. If this story has started to stir something in you, it's because God's not finished with you. Subscribe right now if you believe your past doesn't disqualify you. Your pain might be the setup for your purpose. And if you're walking through a dark time, drop "I'm still trusting God" in the comments. Saturday morning, New Hope Youth Conference. Middletown, Kentucky, 9:47. Eli had never been inside a church like this before. It wasn't the size or the lights that got to him. It was the atmosphere. Hundreds of teenagers gathered from across the district, buzzing with laughter and worship music, filling the wide sanctuary like a wildfire of faith. The walls were lined with banners that read, "Chosen, rise up, and you matter to God." He held the Bible tightly. In his hands, his father's Bible. Still couldn't believe it was real. "You made it." Miss Hayes, the British missionary, called to him from the stage steps. "We've saved a front row seat just for you." Eli blinked. Front row? People like him didn't sit there. But here today everything felt upside down in the best way. Took the seat. And the moment he did, something in his spirit whispered, "Pay attention. Today will mark you." The worship begins. As the worship team began to play, Eli closed his eyes. The music wasn't just songs, it felt like a river rushing through the room. One of the girls next to him began to cry quietly. Another raised her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. Eli didn't know how to explain it, but warmth surged through him, like fire in his chest, like someone had cracked something open inside him. He began to pray not out loud but deep from his soul. "God, I'm here. I don't know what you want, but I'm listening." The moment comes. Halfway through the session, the lead missionary from Norway, Pastor Johan, took the stage. He preached powerfully about the story of David, about how God chooses the overlooked, about how oil finds obedience before it finds fame. Then his tone shifted. He paused mid-sermon and looked directly at Eli. "There is a young man here," Johan said slowly, "who feels like he's lived his entire life in the shadows." A hush fell across the room. "But God says he's been shaping you in the silence, and now he's calling you forward." Johan stepped off the stage and began walking. Every step sent chills through the audience. "You. Stand up." He was in front of Eli. Eli stood shaking. "Your name?" Johan asked. "Eli, son of Michael and Sarah." Eli's breath caught. How did he know? "Yes," Johan nodded. "They were missionaries. Good ones. But what they started you are called to finish." Eli's knees nearly buckled. Lift your hands, Eli. He did. And then it happened. When heaven opened. As Pastor Johann prayed, a sudden rush of wind swept through the sanctuary, though every door and window was closed. Gasps echoed across the room. A soft, golden light began to glow around Eli. Not from stage effects, not from a spotlight. From within. Some students screamed. Others dropped to their knees. Leaders began to pray in the Spirit. It felt like heaven cracked open right above them. And in that moment, Eli wasn't a boy anymore. He was a vessel. He lifted his voice without fear. God is not finished with you, he said clearly. Even when they write you off, heaven writes you in. Students wept. Teachers embraced students. Revival broke out. And Eli stood in the center of it all, glowing like fire, tears streaming down his face. Back in Lincoln Elementary, miles away, Mr. Fletcher sat at his desk, watching a live stream clip someone had shared with him from the youth conference. His face darkened. So now he's a prophet. He opened his drawer and pulled out a thin folder labeled Confidential Eli Walker. Let's see what secrets we can dig up before the world crowns a mistake. That night, Eli wrestles with his calling. Back in his attic room, Eli couldn't sleep. His body still trembled with the presence he had felt. But fear crept in like a shadow. God, what do you want from me? He opened the Bible again, randomly. His eyes landed on Jeremiah 1-5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. He dropped the Bible onto his lap. Tears welled again. Then help me not mess this up. He had no idea that the next battle was already on the way. Monday, back to school. The world felt different to Eli Walker, but Lincoln Elementary hadn't changed a bit. Same peeling classroom walls, same dusty hallways, same students dragging their feet, except now, eyes followed him everywhere. Some kids smiled, others looked confused. A few whispered behind their hands, "He's the one from the youth conference." They said he glowed. Nah, it was just lights and hype. Eli kept his head down, gripping the straps of his backpack. He wasn't chasing attention. He was chasing obedience. But not everyone saw it that way. Mr. Fletcher's office behind closed doors. Mr. Fletcher shut the blinds and locked the door behind him. He tossed a manila folder onto his desk. Inside, Eli's school records, his disciplinary file, behavioral logs thin but present. One note from 3rd grade, accusing him of disruptive spiritual behavior after leading classmates. In a lunchtime prayer group, they'll believe what I show them, Fletcher muttered. Not what they feel in a church service. He picked up the phone. Double quotes, yes. This is Brian Fletcher. I'd like to speak with someone in the district student conduct office. His tone turned grave, like he was reporting a threat. Yes, a student. Concerning signs of psychological instability, religious obsession, possible delusions of grandeur. Lunchroom, the conversation. Back in the cafeteria, Eli sat alone. He didn't mind. Solitude had never scared him. Until now. A classmate named Jordan slid onto the bench beside him. Hey, he said. That thing on Saturday, was it real? Eli looked up slowly. It felt real. Jordan hesitated. You looked like someone else. Not creepy, just powerful. Eli gave a small smile. It wasn't me. I think God just used me for something. Jordan stared for a long second, then nodded. That's crazy, he whispered. But kinda cool. Neither of them noticed Mr. Fletcher standing by the lunchroom door, watching, listening. District intervention. The next day, Eli was called to the school counselor's office. He had never been there before. Eli, the counselor began gently, we've received a few concerns. From your teacher, Mr. Fletcher. Eli blinked. About what? About your mental well-being. He said you might be overwhelmed by religious pressure. Hearing things. Seeing things. Have you experienced any of that lately? Eli froze. Didn't know what to say. What could he say? That he dreamed of glowing fields and heard God's voice? That people cried when he spoke? It sounded crazy even to him. I'm just trying to follow God, he said quietly. The counselor scribbled something in her notes. Okay, thank you, Eli. You can go back to class. But as he left, the weight on his chest tightened. Something was wrong. The suspicion spreads. The whispers grew louder. He's a fake. He's having episodes. The teacher said he needs help. Is he possessed or something? Even some of the teachers gave Eli looks of pity or fear. Only Ms. Rivera, the substitute in art class, pulled him aside. Don't let darkness intimidate you, she whispered. Sometimes, being chosen comes with a cost. Eli's heart sank. Chosen. It didn't feel like a gift today. It felt like a target. Memoir. Fletcher digs deeper. That night, Mr. Fletcher wasn't satisfied. He poured himself a drink in his dark kitchen and sat hunched over an old laptop, searching records online. After 3 failed attempts, he found it. An archived article from 2008. Young missionary couple killed in house fire. Survived by infant son, Eli Walker. He clicked on the link. There it was. A picture of Eli as a baby, held by his father Michael Walker, the very man who had been chosen over him for a missions post almost 2 decades earlier. Of course, he muttered. It's him. It always comes back to him. Mr. Fletcher leaned back in his chair, eyes filled with rage. You took my future, Michael. But I won't let your son take mine. He reached for his phone. Double quotes. Yes. Superintendent's office, please. Spiritual stirring. That night, Eli knelt beside his bed. He couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen had declared war. God, I'm scared, he whispered. I didn't ask for any of this. But if you're still with me, say something. The wind stirred outside. Then the page of his Bible flipped on its own. Eli leaned over and looked. His eyes landed on Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment shall be condemned. Peace returned. Not safety, not comfort, but peace. And that was enough to sleep. Subscribe. Moment. Tension builds. If you can feel the battle intensifying, keep watching. God doesn't raise up warriors to hide from storms. He raises them to walk on water. Subscribe now if you believe the enemy's attack is the confirmation that God has called you. And drop no weapon formed will prosper in the comments. Tuesday evening. Silence that screams. Eli sat in his attic room long after the sun dipped below the trees. No music, no light, just the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the louder, meaner noise of his thoughts. The school counselor had called home. His aunt hadn't even looked at him when she muttered, They said you've been acting strange. Religious episodes, they said. What are you doing at that school? He hadn't answered because he didn't know anymore. The pressure is heavy. Earlier that day, the hallway chatter had gotten worse. Students stepped aside like he carried a disease. Laughed. Others looked scared. Even teachers avoided eye contact. He wasn't angry. He was tired. God, he whispered into the quiet room. Why me? He lay on the bed and stared at the cracked ceiling above. You gave me my dad's Bible. You let them call my name. You showed up at that church. And now, they're turning on me. His fists clenched. I didn't ask to be the front of the line. The old dream returns. That night, Eli had the same dream he'd had weeks ago standing in the middle of an open field. But this time, the sky was darker. Storm clouds loomed overhead. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The glowing figure returned. Standing far ahead of him, Eli ran toward him, but the wind pushed back, hard. I can't move, he cried out. The figure didn't speak this time, just pointed to the ground. Eli looked down. His feet were tangled in something words. Long black cords with sharp ends. Crazy, possessed, delusional, fake, liar. The words were alive, coiled like snakes. He fell to his knees. Help me. Then, faint but clear, the wind carried a whisper. The truth will walk. The lies will drown. He woke up, heart racing, shirt damp with sweat. The letter from the Bible, part 2. Later that morning, Eli flipped open the Bible again and found something tucked between the back pages, a second note. Same paper, same handwriting. It was from his father. Eli, there will come a day when even your light feels like a curse. When people who once clapped for you turn around and call you crazy. That's when you stand your ground. Because the cost of the calling is always misunderstanding. But God never wastes pain. If the crowd turns, let it. If the storm comes, ride it. The fire will not burn what he's marked for glory. Eli pressed the paper to his chest and wept. He wasn't alone, even in this storm. Someone had seen it coming. The prayer that shook the room. Later that day, Eli locked his bedroom door and knelt beside the mattress. This wasn't the fold your hands kind of prayer. This was the collapse your heart kind. God, I'm scared. I don't want to do this if it means I lose everything. He wiped his face. But I also don't want to be like everyone else. I want to be yours. His voice trembled. They're talking about suspending me. I haven't done anything wrong but obey you. Long pause. Then, but if this is what it takes, if this is the valley before the mountain, I won't run. A breeze swept through the cracked window. And for a moment, the words of Psalm 23 came to his lips, not by memory, but like someone whispering them straight into his soul. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Something shifts in the spirit. The next morning, Eli walked into school different. Still quiet, still unsure, but grounded. He carried his Bible in his backpack, not for show, but for strength. And this time, when someone whispered behind his back, he didn't flinch. God goes before me, he murmured under his breath. No weapon formed will prosper. He didn't know yet that in just a few days everything would change. He didn't know a voice from the past was about to come forward and turn the lies upside down. But he trusted again, and that was enough. Deep subscribe moment for struggling believers. If you've ever prayed at God, why me? Prayer. This episode was for you. Subscribe right now if you believe the fire doesn't destroy the called, it forges them. Drop I trust you, God, even here in the comments if you're holding on when it hurts. Wednesday, Lincoln Elementary. 11:05 a.m. The day felt strange from the moment Eli walked through the school doors. He couldn't explain it. Just a heaviness in the air, like a shadow was moving ahead of him. Waiting around some corner. At first, he ignored it, said a quiet prayer as he tucked his Bible deeper into his backpack. God, give me eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to obey no matter what. The whispers start early. It began in second period. As he entered the classroom. The chatter around him didn't stop. It grew louder. Students didn't even bother whispering anymore. I heard he's being called. To the office again. They say he's been scaring the other kids. Even the teacher's nervous. Eli kept his eyes forward. Sat at his desk. He didn't argue. Didn't defend. Inside he whispered, "If you're still with me, I won't flinch." M.R. Fletcher. Moves. In the staff room, Mr. Fletcher adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. "I've done what I could," he told the principal, Mrs. Curran Monroe. "But this boy, he's unsettling the class. Wild religious episodes. Visions. Delusions of spiritual power." He slid a folder across her desk. "You'll find my official written concern, along with statements I've gathered anonymously from a few students." Mrs. Monroe frowned. "And you're recommending?" "Suspension. Temporary, until we can assess his mental and emotional stability." He leaned back. "For everyone's safety." At 1:13 p.m., the classroom intercom clicked on. "Mr. Fletcher, please send Eli Walker to the front office." The room fell silent. Eli stood without a word. One boy behind him muttered, "Told you." He made the slow walk down the hall like it was a tunnel closing in. Every step felt longer than the last. "Yea, though I walk through the valley, he whispered it beneath his breath. "You are with me." Mrs. Monroe's face was calm but unreadable. She gestured for Eli to sit. "Eli," she began, "concerning reports have come to us. From staff. From a few students. There's talk of unpredictable behavior. Religious obsession. Hallucinations." Eli blinked. "I haven't done anything wrong." "That's not for me to decide just yet," she replied. "But we take all reports seriously." She slid a form across the table. "You're being placed on temporary leave until the school board can assess next steps." Eli looked at the paper. He didn't cry. He didn't argue. He only said, "God knows the truth." Mrs. Monroe blinked, caught off guard by his calmness. But the decision had already been made. The long walk out. As Eli packed his things and left the school early. Heads turned to watch him go. Some laughed, some whispered, others looked uncertain. But Eli didn't look back, and he didn't hang his head. He walked like someone he knew, the one who was walking beside him. That night, a psalm in the dark. Back in his attic room, Eli sat by the window, the form from school still folded in his lap. He didn't know what the future held, but he did know this. God is not confused, and he's not surprised. He opened his Bible, his father's, and let the pages fall open naturally. This time, it landed on Psalm 27. His eyes fell on verse 1. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Eli shut his eyes. And for the first time in days he smiled. Elsewhere that night, Mr. Fletcher sipped tea in his dim kitchen, the school report glowing on his laptop screen. "Step closer to silence," he muttered. But he had no idea that someone who knew the truth was watching the live stream from the youth seminar again, and recognizing a boy who looked just like Michael Walker, and planning to make a call that would change everything. If you've ever felt accused when you were innocent, if you've ever walked out not knowing what tomorrow looks like, this story is your story. Subscribe now if you believe God is the defender of the voiceless. And comment, "God sees me," if you're still trusting when it doesn't make sense. Thursday mid-morning. It was supposed to be an ordinary day at Lincoln Elementary. Gray skies. Standard schedule. The buzz of pencils on paper. Nobody expected anything unusual. Not even Mr. Fletcher, who leaned against the staff room. counter-sipping coffee, rereading the district's report on Eli's temporary suspension like it was a trophy. He'll be forgotten soon, he muttered. But across the parking lot, a silver rental car rolled slowly into a guest spot. Out stepped a woman in her late 50s, with a neat blazer, weathered boots, and a Bible tucked under her arm. Her name was Margaret Dean. She wasn't here by accident. Back in his attic room, Eli sat at the window again, staring at clouds. 2 days into his leave, and it felt like he was slowly vanishing. God, he whispered, you said you'd never leave me. So why do I feel invisible again? He didn't know that even. Then, wheels were turning in his favor. Inside the front office, Margaret Dean smiled politely at the receptionist. I'm here to see Mrs. Monroe, the principal. Do you have an appointment? No, she said gently. But I think she'll want to hear what I have to say. She was escorted in within minutes. Mrs. Monroe rose from her desk, puzzled. How can I help you? Margaret sat down and placed the worn Bible on the desk. I'm here about Eli Walker, the boy you just suspended. The principal stiffened. I'm not at liberty to discuss private student matters with. I'm not just anyone, Margaret interrupted. I was his parents' best friend. I was the matron of honor at their wedding. And I know the boy better than any record in that drawer. Mrs. Monroe blinked. Go on. Margaret's voice softened. His father, Michael Walker, was one of the most selfless men I've ever known. His mother, Sarah, was a prayer warrior. They gave everything to serve missions, shelters, community work. I watched them burn for God when no one clapped for them. She paused. When they died in that house fire, Eli was just a baby. I tried to take him, but custody went elsewhere. I lost touch. Tears welled in her eyes. Then I saw the youth conference live stream this past weekend. The moment I saw that boy speak, I knew whose child he was. She pointed to the screen on Mrs. Monroe's desk. You suspended a boy God is clearly raising. Silence. Long. Uncomfortable. Holy. Mrs. Monroe leaned back slowly. Her expression wasn't defensive anymore. It was shaken. I didn't know. Few people do, Margaret said. But someone else did. Someone who's been trying to erase that boy from the moment he walked into this school. Mr. Fletcher, Monroe whispered. Margaret nodded. He was passed over for the same mission Eli's father was selected for. He's been carrying that bitterness like a weapon. Monroe folded her hands. Do you have proof? Margaret smiled and pulled out an old photograph. Michael and Sarah Walker standing beside Margaret, arms wrapped around a baby in a white blanket. The baby was Eli. Let's talk to the school board. Back in his attic, Eli's phone rang. He stared at the screen. It was the school's number. He hesitated, then answered. Eli, this is Principal Monroe. I'd like to invite you back to school tomorrow. There's something we need to discuss in person. Eli's heart pounded. Am I in trouble? No, she said softly. You've been in the fire. But now it's time for the truth to speak. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but something in her voice said, God wasn't late. He was setting the stage. That night, the return of peace. Eli opened the Bible again. This time, he didn't search. He just rested his hand on the cover. You didn't forget me, he whispered. No angel appeared. No dream this time. Just the steady presence of peace, thick, warm, uncheckable. He looked out the window at the stars breaking through the cloud cover. Let the truth walk. Let the lies drown. Subscribe. Moment. Truth rising. This is your reminder that when people plan in secret, God moves in the open. If you've ever felt falsely accused, hang on. The God of justice is never silent. Subscribe now and comment, God is my defender. If you believe truth always finds a voice. Friday morning, 7:58 a.m. The hallway buzzed with low chatter as the students filed into the building. Everything seemed ordinary, until the front doors opened and Eli Walker walked back in. Backpack on, eyes forward. Peace in every step. Few students froze mid-sentence. Others stared. One whispered, "Didn't he get suspended?" Jordan, the boy from the cafeteria, grinned. "He's back. And I bet he didn't come back alone." Principal Monroe's office. The meeting. Inside the front office, Principal Monroe sat with calm resolve. At her left sat Margaret Dean. Her face composed but fierce. At her right, a school board representative, arms folded, lips tight. Across from them, Mr. Fletcher, tapping his pen nervously. "You wanted to see me?" he asked. "We did," Monroe replied. "We've received some enlightening information about your history with Michael Walker." Fletcher's pen stopped mid-tap. "What does that have to do with anything?" Margaret leaned forward. "Everything." She laid the photo on the table again. "Michael, Sarah, baby Eli, and her. You've been trying to erase this boy from the moment you saw him, because he reminded you of the man you could never become." "That's ridiculous," Fletcher scoffed. "I submitted formal documentation, student concerns." "You orchestrated fear," the school board member cut in. "And we have testimony that you manipulated students into signing those statements." Fletcher stood up sharply. "This is a witch hunt." "No," Monroe said quietly. "This is justice." A knock on the office door interrupted them. Eli stepped in. Mr. Fletcher turned pale. The confrontation. Eli didn't speak right away. He just looked at the teacher who'd spent months trying to crush him. Mr. Fletcher looked away. "Do you have anything to say, Eli?" Monroe asked. Eli nodded slowly, then reached into his bag and took out the Bible, his father's. "I forgive you." Everyone went still. Fletcher blinked. "You, what?" Eli's voice didn't rise. "It didn't need to. You tried to destroy me because of what someone else did to you. But I'm not your enemy. I'm a boy who's trying to follow God." He placed the Bible gently on the table. "I forgive you, but I won't be afraid of you anymore." The room goes silent. Nobody breathed. Even Fletcher looked. Principal Monroe turned to the board rep. "I believe we've heard enough. We'll be conducting a full review," the board rep said. "In the meantime, Mr. Fletcher, you're relieved of duty, effective immediately." Fletcher didn't speak. He just gathered his things slowly, eyes locked on the boy who didn't break. Then he left. By third period, the entire school had heard. "Fletcher's gone?" Eli stood up to him. He forgave him. Wait, he really glowed at that conference. Some kids started trailing Eli like he was Moses parting the Red Sea. He didn't bask in it. He didn't talk much. He just went back to class. Something was different now. The boy who was pushed to the back. Had walked through fire and came back brighter. That night, Eli sat in his attic again. This time, it wasn't silent. His phone buzzed with dozens of messages, people thanking him, students opening up, teachers asking him to speak at chapel. He smiled, but he wasn't chasing attention. He was still chasing obedience. He opened his Bible again, and this time, he wrote something on the first blank page. "I was pushed to the back, but God moved the line, and I am not afraid anymore." Subscribe moment for the vindicated. If you've ever been falsely accused but kept your peace, if you've walked through fire and kept your faith, this episode is your moment. Subscribe right now if you believe God fights battles you never even see. Drop "I am not afraid anymore" in the comments if you know God will bring truth to Light. Monday. The email that changed everything. Eli was finishing a bowl of cereal when his aunt called from the living room. Eli, there's an email here. You better come read this. He wiped his hands and walked over. Still. In pajamas. She turned the screen to him. Subject line. We'd like to feature Eli Walker lived this Wednesday. From Hopestream International Ministries. Eli blinked. What is this? She scrolled down. Dear Eli, we were deeply moved by what happened at the youth seminar. One of our international team members was in the audience. The clip of your encounter has reached over 7 million views. We believe God is using you to inspire a generation. We'd like you to join us on our Wednesday night live stream to share your story. Eli's heart thudded. 7 million. He sat slowly. What do I even say? His aunt smiled. Just tell the truth, Eli. That's always enough. Wednesday live stream prep. The Hopestream studio was in a modern church outside Louisville. Clean, professional but peaceful. The air buzzed with quiet prayer. Eli sat in the green room beside Pastor Johann, the same man who had first prophesied over him. Are you nervous? Johann asked. Eli gave a small laugh. That's like asking if water is wet. Johann chuckled, then grew serious. Eli, tonight isn't about hype. It's about heaven reaching hearts. Just speak what God gives. And what if I freeze? Then the Holy Spirit will thaw you out. They both smiled. But as Eli stepped toward the stage, his knees felt like rubber. Then a whisper filled his heart. I am with you. Even now. The live stream begins to 8 p.m. The lights dimmed. The host, a woman named Tasha Avery, welcomed the viewers. Over the past week, a moment from a youth conference went viral, one where a young boy, only 13, was seen praying with power, speaking with authority, and causing an entire room of teenagers to fall to their knees. Tonight, he's here. Eli walked out, nervous, quiet, hands folded, but as he sat across from her and the cameras rolled, something shifted. The peace returned. The testimony. Tasha smiled gently. Eli, what happened that day? Eli took a breath. I didn't plan anything. I was just desperate for God. My whole life. I felt small, overlooked, like I didn't matter. But that day, something changed. What changed? I realized that God sees who people skip, that He calls people from the back of the line. And when He calls you, it doesn't matter who tries to push you out. He always finds a way to bring you forward. That's powerful. And after that day you were persecuted? Eli nodded slowly. Yeah, I got suspended from school. People said I was crazy, that I was imagining things. But God didn't leave me in that. He looked directly at the camera, to the kid watching. This who feels like you've been forgotten. You're not. God hasn't missed a single tear. The fight you're in might feel unfair, but He's using it to bring out something strong in you. Don't quit. Wow, Tasha whispered. Then she asked, Can you pray for those watching? Eli closed his eyes. Father, for every person who feels rejected, for every teen battling silence and shame, let them feel you right now. I don't need the right words, because your Spirit speaks better than I do. Just show them. You're near. Touch their hearts. Wake their callings. In Jesus' name, amen. When he opened his eyes, Tasha was wiping tears, and so were people in the studio. The global impact. By the next morning, over 230,000 comments had flooded in. I felt heat in my room as he prayed. My depression lifted mid-live stream. My daughter hadn't spoken in 3 months. She just said, God touched me. This boy lit a fire in me I thought had died. People from India, South Korea, South Africa, Brazil, Canada, and small towns across the US testified of visions, healings, and emotional breakthroughs. Eli had no idea. He just returned home, took off his shoes, and went to pray like usual. The spotlight didn't change him, because the fire inside him came from a deeper source. The day after the live stream aired, Eli's inbox exploded. Churches from every state were emailing, begging him to speak at youth rallies. A major Christian publisher offered to help him write a devotional. A famous gospel artist's team reached out. Would Eli consider joining us on our summer tour? It would be huge for his exposure. His aunt sat beside him, scrolling through it all. "You're 13, she whispered. "You still leave your socks on the stairs." Eli laughed nervously. "It's a lot, huh? But deep inside, a strange seed had begun to grow. Pride? Maybe not yet, but pressure. Definitely. Tuesday. The first crack. Eli stood in front of his mirror that night. Shirt untucked, hair messy, Bible on the bed. He was supposed to record a short video prayer for a youth group in Seattle. Instead, he stared at himself. What if I mess up? He muttered. He glanced at the Bible, then away. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they don't cry this time? That thought hit harder than expected. He'd never worried about that before. He used to pray just to connect with God. Now, he was starting to pray so people would be impressed. He didn't like it. But he didn't stop. Wednesday, spiritual fatigue. He hadn't prayed like he used to. Not since the live stream. Just quick prayers. Polished words. Public prayers. He realized he hadn't really been alone with God in days. And for the first time in a long time, Eli felt empty. "God," he whispered that night, "why do I feel so far from you now?" But no whisper came back. No breeze. No verse. Only silence. Thursday. The enemy speaks. The next night, Eli had a dream, but not like the others. One was dark. He was standing on a giant stage, crowd cheering, cameras flashing, everyone clapping. But when he opened his mouth to speak, nothing came out. He looked down. The Bible in his hands was gone, replaced by a trophy. He gripped it tightly, and a voice from the shadows whispered, "This is better. You're finally somebody." He turned toward the voice, but it wore his own face. Woke up shaking. The breakdown. Eli didn't eat breakfast the next morning. He went back to his attic room, shut the door, and sat on the floor. The messages kept pouring in. Invitations. Interview requests. Video tags. But for the first time since the platform rose, he wanted to run away. "God, I'm scared again," he whispered. "Not of people, of me. I liked it. The attention, the compliments, the feeling that I mattered." Tears spilled onto his shirt. "But I miss you more." Silence, then not a voice, but a presence. Warm. Strong. Gentle. He picked up his Bible, trembling. It fell open to James 4-6. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. And he knew. God wasn't angry. He was inviting him back. The secret altar. That night, Eli unplugged his phone, logged off all platforms, turned off the lights, and knelt not to perform, but to repent. "God, I don't want to be a name. I want to be yours. If you never give me another mic, if nobody claps again, I still want you." His voice cracked. "Break whatever you have to break. Just don't let me lose you." And there, in that hidden place, God whispered back, "The oil flows from crushing. The fire stays on the altar of surrender." The reset. The next day, he declined 3 interviews, cancelled 2 invitations, and scheduled no live streams. Instead, He took his Bible and walked into the woods behind his school. He sat under a tree and prayed for no one to hear but God. And for the first time all week, he glowed again. Not with fame, but with fellowship. Subscribe moment, the Holy Reset. If you've ever wrestled with pride, pressure, or performance, Eli's story is a reminder. God doesn't need your platform. He wants your heart. Subscribe now if you're choosing presence over popularity. Drop Lord, keep me surrendered in the comments if this episode hit home. 2 weeks later, Lincoln Elementary. The flyer simply read, Community Youth Rally. Hope for a Generation. Guest, Eli Walker. Student, speaker, survivor. No flashy titles. No celebrity guest. Just a bold decision from Principal Monroe, who despite criticism opened the gym for something bigger than grades. Hundreds of students packed the bleachers that Thursday night. Some came curious, others skeptical. A few came mocking. But Eli came ready. Not to impress, but to obey. He wore a simple blue sweater, carried no notes, just his father's Bible, and a prayer whispered from the attic before he left. Lord, if you want to speak tonight, use me. But if you want to move, take over. The gym goes still. When Eli stepped onto the stage, the lights dimmed, but the silence grew louder. Some students snickered, others folded arms. The gym was filled with energy, but not all of it was friendly. Eli adjusted the mic. His voice didn't shake. I'm not here because I'm strong, he began. I'm here because I was broken. And in that broken place, God showed up. He shared the whole story, brief, raw, real. The rejection. The vision, the suspension, the forgiveness, and the fire that came after surrender. No yelling, just truth. You may not believe in miracles, he said gently, but I'm standing here because of one, the challenge. Then he said something no one expected. If you're here and you've been hurting silently, come down. A few laughed, but one girl stood up quietly. Then another. A boy from the back row. Then 5 more. Within minutes, nearly 60 students had filled the floor, some crying, some shaking. Eli whispered one last prayer. Holy Spirit, come. The gym shakes. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew through the open side doors of the gym. People screamed. Some fell to their knees. Lights flickered. But it wasn't chaos. It was conviction. A holy hush fell over the gym like a wave. One teacher dropped to the ground, weeping uncontrollably. A student with a stutter cried out, then began speaking clearly. Worshipping. Another boy known for bullying collapsed in tears and asked God to forgive him out loud. Nobody could explain it, but nobody could deny it. God had entered the building, and no one moved. Fletcher returns and falls. In the very back of the gym, just outside the door, stood a man watching silently. Mr. Fletcher. He had come only to witness the boy preacher's show, from a distance out of spite, not faith. But as the presence of God swept through the gym, something inside him broke. His knees buckled. And for the first time in 20 years he whispered, God, I was wrong. He wept uncontrollably, curled in the grass outside the gym, his heart finally surrendering. No one saw him, except heaven. The final word. Eli knelt at the center of the gym, surrounded by students, arms lifted. He didn't need to preach anymore. The miracle wasn't in the words. It was in the presence. When he finally stood, the gym remained silent. Then someone began to sing. Then another. A soft worship chorus filled the air. No instruments. Just voices. And Eli whispered through tears, Is what happens when God walks into a school. The news spreads. The next day, the story was everywhere. Teen sparks unplanned revival at Kentucky school. Boy once suspended leads prayer that brings hundreds to their knees. From rejected to anointed, the story of Eli Walker. But Eli didn't watch the news. He was back in the attic, on his knees, praying not for more fame, for more fire. A final note in his father's Bible. Tucked inside the back page of the Bible, under the other letters, he found something he hadn't seen before. A final note in his dad's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means the world finally saw you. But don't let the world keep you. Stay small. Stay surrendered. Because the bigger the stage, the lower the altar needs to be. Eli smiled and wrote beneath it. It started in the back of the line and ended in front of the throne. Eli Walker. Final subscribe moment. The miracle finish. If this story stirred your heart, you didn't find it by accident. God is still calling out the quiet ones, still using the broken ones, and still doing miracles in schools, bedrooms, and ordinary places. Subscribe now if you believe the next revival could start in someone. Just like you comment, it started in the back. If you believe God still moves mountains for the overlooked. The end. But the fire has only just begun. If this episode touched your heart, don't leave without subscribing. Share this video with someone who needs to know that God sees them, even in the back of the line, and drop a comment below. What part of Eli's story spoke to you the most? Until next time, stay humble, stay surrendered, and let God write your story. The fire didn't end with Eli. It's in you. Carry it forward.